Hello, everybody. I'm Frank Stanishi of Open Forums Candid Frank Live. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me on the program is Paul Rosen. Many of you may know who he is, many of you may not. But I promise you this, by the time the end of the program comes, you'll know who he is and you'll understand the experience he had. And he shared it in a book that he and Roger Lajoie wrote, and it's called Never Give Up. Let's welcome our guest, Paul Rosen. It's great to see you. We go back. We haven't talked to each other in years. I think twice. A decade after I was at Rogers, I think we had something to do with. I'm forgetting. Now I'm forgetting the guy's name that ran the TV network. I met you through there,
Yeah,
and
I'm pretty sure it
Frank
was
Frank
Frank D'Angelo.
Frank D'Angelo. That's it.
Yeah, and Marty
Yeah,
York. We did a couple things with Marty.
that's right. And Marty was a writer for the Sun, I think, wasn't it? Was it? Sorry,
Sun,
Globe.
Globe,
The,
He did
the
things
Globe.
with the Sunny, the Globe, Sportsnet. Yeah, we go. It's a long time. We haven't seen each other in a long time. Frank. I'm tired.
And
I'm just tired of listening to that intro, boy. Whoa, you got a lot of things going on.
a couple. You know how it is. Everything's so splintered nowadays. You got to sort of to make a piece of wood. You got to add a bunch of slivers together, so you end up with a piece of wood. So that's basically where we're at. But I'm glad you were able to survive the intro. Anyway, you wrote this book, Never Give Up. The implication is that there was an opportunity for you to give up. There it is. Beautiful. Thank you. Uh,
You're welcome.
the motivation for writing the book.
Yeah, the motivation was, I've had a crazy life from a child in trouble in school to mental health issues to breaking my leg severely in the 70s, my dream ending playing wanting to play professional hockey, and then losing my leg in 99, being sick for a couple of years, and then having the opportunity to play for my country and for 10 years in 3 Paralympic Games. The message, especially right now, Frank, with mental health issues and addiction issues and suicide issues, and I've had a couple of suicide situations that, but by the grace of God, I pulled through. I just wanted people to see that you could be on the top of the mountain. So many people could see you as this larger than life person, but there's so many demons living within inside you from behind the closed doors that I think it's important for people in the public eye who are going through troubles to tell the general public, especially now with COVID, that everybody goes through this. This is not just for the person who is like, suffering in silence. This is, big name people have big trouble, and it's how you handle it. And I want the world to realize that anything is possible if you reach out for help and you realize that, it's not as bad as you think when you really sit down and think about the grand scheme of life.
Yeah, just for the sake of openness, I've publicly spoken about my depression and my suicide tendencies. I made it to the top of an overpass. I'm interested in your perspective, and we can help share with people, especially at this time where Bell Talk is a big deal. It's painful to think about it, but it's also important that you do. Correct?
100%, absolutely. 3 years ago, January 30th, it was Bell Let's Talk Day, and January 30th, 2019, I did an event in the morning, and you remember Rick Rippon, who passed away, the Vancouver Canuck, did an event and brought back a lot of memories of Rick. Came home that night and attempted suicide. I overdosed on pain medication. Spent 17 days in the psychiatric ward at the Toronto General Hospital. Then got myself into a couple of real good groups in AA and NA. Really had a good first year in sobriety and being clean. And then COVID hit. And the last year and a half, even though writing the book and it brought back a lot of memories, I'll get you a book and you can read it. There's a lot of, it's very honest. Even my sister, who's, thought she's known me my whole life, her whole life, there was so many things in there she had no clue, because I wanted to be extremely honest. The last 2 months have been extremely difficult, trying to hide a lot of feelings. And then 2 weeks ago, this Friday, I had another overdose. Almost 3 years clean. I'm back to the beginning again. I spent 4 days in the hospital. It's 2 weeks ago, last 2 Fridays ago. And it was touch and go. I probably shouldn't have made it through, but I do believe we're here for a reason, Frank, and we get through. And I'm learning so much more about myself through this attempt than the one 3 years ago. That I'm here for a reason. I'm here to help other people, and I've got really good people in my corner now. And and doing shows like yours makes it very easy for me to understand why I'm still alive.
Yeah, yeah, we can work on this together, and I think it's important that people like us. I agree with you 100% that we speak out. Um, I think another important factor for me was, well, in my case, I was involved with an accident, on-site accident, and my supervisor moved one of my fences, and he leaned over the edge, fell to the ground to his death, and I was the first one up to him. And I had the horrible experience of holding him while he took his last breath. He literally drowned in his own blood. When we go to therapy, when we do things like this, I mention the horrific nature of this because it's important that we repeat the whole thing and keep repeating it so that we understand that it brings us pain and then deal with that pain. At the end of the day, I don't know if you agree, it's actually holding a real mirror in front of yourself. And you just spoke about being truly honest. It for us, for people who could suffer depression or addiction or, God forbid, thoughts of suicide, the most important thing that we can do is be honest with ourselves. And the most important thing after being honest with yourself is understanding there are people there for you.
You couldn't have said that any better. The biggest difference between me 3 years ago and me now is I am honest with myself. I had pieces, like I was clean and sober, um, physically, but not mentally. And I think that's critical. Mentally is critical to sobriety and to being clean and having good thoughts. Is finally now I'm 100% honest and authentic. I have a great sponsor. I have great people in my corner. I do not allow myself to get in my own head. And for those of you out there that are watching the show right now, if you're suffering from mental health issues, from addiction issues, from thoughts of suicide, the biggest thing is to have people in your corner that know what you're going through, that have been through it and know what you're going through. Family's incredible, very important. But a lot of time, my family's never been through addiction. They love me for me, but they don't understand my mind. And unless you have the mind of somebody truly depressed or in addiction, suicidal thoughts, you just don't get it, unfortunately, Frank.
Yeah, no, that is key. It became an impact in my with my family. It literally ruined my life because I did not have the bravery to admit. Unfortunately, uh, especially being a a person who's in charge of other people, a person who's who thinks they can handle anything, and everything that has to be handled by you. You can't share any responsibility. You can't put any burden on anybody else. And worst of all, you feel like you're weak when it bothers you, so you don't admit it. So the admission is a way of freeing yourself. And as you said, unfortunately, the closest to you that don't understand, um, uh, you know, abuse, addiction, um, the thoughts of depression, and of course suicide. You really need to be in touch with people who have been through it and understand it, because people who haven't misinterpret the pain that you're feeling as pain you want to give people, when in fact what it is you're calling out for help, because it's like when you scream, you're not screaming at somebody, you're screaming for help. You're seeking help. So when you see somebody like that, I would also like to reach out to people out there. When you see somebody who's acting what doesn't look right, don't consider whether it's normal for them.
Right.
Just think about whether it's normal, period. And I suggest to you and everybody else out there that you may find that there's an underlying issue, an underlying problem that I'm not saying you can wave a wand at and solve, but you can send somebody somewhere, put somebody with somebody that can help chip away at what's bothering them and what makes them the way they are, that to the the public not look normal, not look right, look like, I don't want to use words that we're trying to get rid of, like, a mind that's broken, right? We don't You don't know that until you reach out to them and help them reach out to somebody else. That's the best thing your story teaches me. And the second best thing is, the most important thing that I got from your thing, and tell us about this, is about never giving up, not only on issues of doing things, never give up on the idea that you need to always protect yourself, because it never ends. The need to not give up is to not give up protecting yourself.
Oh, 100%. It's like I'm going to say it a million times during the show. It's having people in your corner that understand, alcoholism, drug abuse, they're all disease. It's a disease like cancer, like people that mental health is a disease. It's something in your brain. It's not something people want. Nobody wants to be depressed, Frank. Nobody wants to have addiction issues. Nobody wants to have suicidal thoughts. It's a misfire in your brain, that it's a disease that you need help for. And I say it all the time too. You know, Never giving up means striving for the top of the mountain on a daily basis and continuously having to deal with falling down to the bottom of the mountain. But as long as you continuously try to get back up, don't lay down. Try to get back up. Try to climb back. There's days you're not going to make it to the top of the mountain, but unless you're trying and physically and mentally, emotionally trying to get back up, then we're all going to bow into what's going on with COVID and every. There's so many problems in this world, but there's so many incredible solutions.
Absolutely. And you highlighted the fact that unfortunately some of us are predisposed
Yep.
to weakness. I feel bad using these kinds of words. I guess it's because of the era we live in. You got to be
Right.
careful how you define people, but I'll just define it for myself. It's identifying your own personal weaknesses, and also the triggers that bring you to those weaknesses. And when you add all that up, all those triggers and all those weaknesses, it could bring you to a place that really is one that we all want to stay away from. And your challenge and the life's tests on you never end, correct? You're always, it's like they talk about addiction or alcoholism. You don't stop being an alcoholic or an addicted person.
No, it's like today, like 2 weeks. I think about 2 weeks ago today. At this time, everything was normal until 11 o'clock tonight. 2 weeks ago, where again my mind went to that. And I like Michael Landsberg. I'm sure you know Michael, and
Absolutely, absolutely,
Michael was hit. I love his saying is sick, not weak. And
absolutely.
although weakness is a part of life, it is strength, weakness. There's so many words, but this is a sickness. It's a disease, and when you realize that it's disease, that's when you can start to forgive yourself. And when you truly forgive yourself, that's when you can grow.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we got to the really hard part. We started with the really hard part, which is basically, we've highlighted that we both had problems, but there was a good part of your life. I mean, as much as have had the Queen's Jubilee Medal.
Yep.
Explain to the folks what that is and when you received it.
That was one of the coolest things. One of the last things my mother got to enjoy with me before she passed away. So in 2013, the Queen Elizabeth Jubilee Award was given to 66,000 Canadians, which, when you think about it, 35 million, 66,000, that's pretty cool. But out of those 66,000, the Prime Minister at the time, Stephen Harper, he handpicked 17 of the 66,000, and I was one of them. And it was pretty cool. We went to Queen's Park. The crazy thing, Frank, was I kind of felt like Waldo in the book Where's Waldo, because the other 16 were Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, David Cinnamon, the owner of the Argos at the time, Bonnie Burke, who was the CEO of the Bay. We had Frank Longos from Longos, and then we had Paul Rosen. I think I had $42 in my pocket at the time, and we probably had 100 million between the other 16, maybe more, probably more. So I kind of felt like Waldo, but Prime Minister Harper made me feel really good. He had been, part of our team a few times, came in the room when we won in Torino. He had us for dinner at Parliament buildings. So to have my mom and dad there, to see me receive it from Prime Minister Harper and Lieutenant Governor David Onley, who I'm a massive fan of, it's a memory I'll have forever. And to be one of 17 Canadians of 35 million to have that memory, and I still keep the Jubilee medal very close to all my awards, and I still bring it out every once in a while to show kids that you can. I never graduated from high school, and here I am at the time, 47 years old, picking up the Queen Elizabeth Jubilee Award, which, at 61 now, I look back on my life and go, wow, I've had some pretty cool things happen.
Are you aware that Prime Minister Harper at that time and since has been a big sports fan and has a giant room full of jerseys?
100%. We talk sports. When the few times we got together, and when we won in 2006 and got to meet him in Ottawa, he knows his sports and he loves his hockey.
Yeah, he absolutely does. He has a big, I think it's an oversized closet full of jerseys. The jerseys. I
Yeah.
was going to ask if he had your jersey or anything from you, any memorabilia from you in his collection.
Yeah, I don't think he does. I never gave him anything. Maybe he went out and got something, but had some real good conversations with him. And I'm a huge believer in athletes who get an opportunity to go, whether it's the Parliament buildings in Canada to meet your Prime Minister, or it's the President in the United States, or the White House. Whether you believe in the politics or not, athletes at a certain point have a responsibility, in my opinion anyways, Frank, to go and be honored by the leader of your country, whether you agree or not. Now, I happen to agree with Harper, and I was a PC, and I still am, and I don't have a problem saying that. But some of these athletes, we'll go back to Tim Thomas when he won the cup with the Bruins, and didn't want to go because he didn't believe in the Prime Minister, the President at the time. I don't agree with that. You put politics aside when it comes to sport, in my opinion, and you get honored by the head of your country.
I'll take your suggestion, and we can put politics aside and continue on the subject of the success that you had, because you had a lot of success. There was a lot of reason to be proud. We just talked about the Diamond Jubilee, which was an important function that you shared in with a lot of other people that were well known in the country. You also had the opportunity, like many of us growing up, having the dream of playing in the National Hockey League. So you grew up wanting to be a National Hockey League player. How did that start? How did you feel when you were young? And tell us about that feeling of wanting to be an NHL player.
Well, I was very fortunate. I have a brother who's 4 years older than me, so he got me into hockey very young. I was good, and I was a big kid for my age, so I got to play with all of his buddies. So when I was 6 and 7, I got to play with the guys 11 and 12, and that obviously makes you better when you're playing with guys older than you and better than you. And so I had the opportunity to play fairly high level in bantam and midget. And it was good hockey. I played with the Thornhill Thunderbirds when the OMHA was quite big. We played some really good teams back in '75 when they had the Wrigley's tournament and they were sending a team over to Russia. That's when the Don Mills Flyers won it, and it was good hockey. It was not that hockey isn't good now. It's just a little different back then than it is now, Frank.
Yeah, and you're on a at that age. You're at the age where you're trying to, as hard as you can, to follow your dream. You're pushing for the idea that you want to be a pro hockey player, and then at the tender age of 15 years old, you end up involved in an accident. Explain that accident, and please, I hope I don't, make it difficult on you, but I think
No.
it's important for what we're talking about that you describe the situation when you were 15 and what happened.
Yeah, I've told the story a million times. It's not a big deal. We were playing in Barrie in the old Dunlop Arena, which people will remember. It's now a fire hall. The arena's gone, and I was a right winger at the time, not a goaltender. I was coming around the net. I caught a rut in the ice and spiral fractured my leg, and that was pretty well the end. I had an opportunity for a junior A tryout the following year, but back in the '70s, when you have a bad injury and you break your leg as severely as I did and tear the ligaments, the doctors didn't know what they know now. And that injury now in 2022, it's a bad injury, but it's not a career threatening injury like it was back in the '70s.
Similarly, you could say like, and the Cicerelli injury wasn't as bad as yours, but it was bad. And he was able to make a comeback. In junior, they didn't think he'd make it as a National Hockey League player. So these kinds of injuries today are a lot easier to survive and or recover from. So you're 15, you break your leg, and I can't believe this, 14 places to be
Yeah.
exact. So
Yeah.
now, never mind playing hockey, just walking now is a challenge. You spent that time and into being a young adult through 20 surgeries trying to repair the knee. Speak to that experience.
Yeah, it was a continuous ligament issues. My ACL tore like 3 times. Different injuries down my shin into my ankle. The leg was never really the same. I went on and I still played men's hockey and did some things. I remember it brought up with the book. It brought up a story playing men's hockey at 23, 24 years old at Chestwood Arena, which I'm sure you know Chestwood
Played there,
Arena.
refereed there.
Yeah. So I had a cast on actually from my groin to my ankle for a break to my kneecap, and we were in the finals of men's hockey. It was good hockey, but it was men's hockey. Frank, I wasn't getting paid, and I
Absolutely.
remember sneak. I just newly married, snuck my equipment out of the garage. Went to the rink to Chestwood, came in the rink with the cast and a hacksaw in my bag, hacksawed the cast off, played the game. We won 3-1, got all 3 goals, won the championship. And then when it was over, I realized I had to go back to the hospital to get a new cast. And I couldn't fool my family because the cast that I had was, the old white cast with all
Yeah, yeah.
signatures on it. I couldn't duplicate those signatures, Frank. So I had to put a new cast on. And that's when everybody realized that I cut the cast off to play. A lot of silly things. And, I say this in my talks when I do my motivational talks is, the one thing that I do take responsibility for is I take consequences and responsibility for my actions. I've never blamed one person for what happened to me in my life. Um, all the things I did, good and bad, I did, and I think that's the one thing now. A lot of people blame other people for their issues, for their problems. You're never going to get anywhere in life blaming somebody else, Frank.
Yeah, we all make poor decisions. You're not alone. It also is, unfortunately, if you're a person who's predisposed to depression or addiction, when you make a mistake, I think people like us are very hard on ourselves, and we're not easy on ourselves. That's part of the problem, is that it's difficult for us to accept making a mistake, and maybe we shouldn't do that, and sometimes we carry it around with us. I don't know how you did, but that's the challenge I have with the depression, is that I find I know when I'm getting depressed because I blame myself and even out loud tell myself what a dummy I am.
I think that's a critical thing that you've just said for people out there. There are probably people that are watching right now that are depressed that are going, "Oh my God, Frank, I feel the exact same way." That's a problem. The problem is that we see ourselves, we find the flaws in everything we do, not the great things, and we have that self hate. And with depression comes self hate, and self hate is one of the worst things you can possibly have.
Terrible.
I used to do a talk, finish the talk, have kids come up to me, think I was the greatest thing since sliced bread, signing autographs. And then on my way home, the self hate would creep in till I finally got home and lived by myself. And that self hate would take over all the great things that happen. And that's one of my biggest challenges right now. Get that self hate, push it away, bring the love in.
Yeah, and you know what, Paul, brother, I got to say this, and the most important thing that I can say to you is that yeah, we have to learn. My opinion here, we have to learn that when we start feeling down, it's that terrible devil inside us that wants to bring us down that we have to defeat. That's who you have to beat. It's that evil thing that's inside you that looks for opportunities to tear you down out of the simplest and insignificant reason. You explained it beautifully when you said, you spend hours being adulated, right? You get people saying how great, look how great Mr. Rosen is, he's so awesome. And then
Yeah.
it just takes a couple of minutes of a bad thought and that overwhelms all the good that just happened. That's the challenge of depression. You have and will survive this over and over again. For you, the challenge, we've talked about it, and I don't want to wear people out with talking about it. So let's talk about the positive, because I want to make sure people understand how deeply you are successful in building yourself up. So you end up spending 20 years, various operations, and trying to save the knee, and then one day you're in the Czech Republic, one of your favorite places, and or I forget how it happened. Your knee went out.
Yeah, we're coming back from a tournament, and it was actually in the airport in Frankfurt, Germany. Coming back from a tournament, and the Czech Republic is my favorite place. I've been there many times. A lot of success in the Czech Republic, whether it's Ostrava or in Prague. I love Prague. Shout out to Prague. Anybody want to go to Prague when the pandemic ends? It's one of the nicest places in the world. I don't know if you've been there, Frank, but it's beautiful.
I've
But
not.
the it in the airport in Frankfurt, Germany, my leg gave out. I came back to Toronto, needed a knee replacement in late May of 1997. Had a great doctor at the Toronto Western Hospital. Unfortunately, and I look at it now, fortunately, but at that time, unfortunately, I picked up an infection in the operating room, and we battled from May of 97 until June of 99, surgery after surgery after surgery. And finally, in June of 99, there really wasn't too many other choices. And I traveled to Israel. I was involved with the Israeli national team. A good friend of mine on the team, he got me in to see a doctor in a private hospital in Tel Aviv. And the doctor basically on the 8th of June, 99 said, we got to get that leg off. And on the 9th, they took the leg off. And on the 10th, I was 100% healthy. I call it the three craziest days of my life. The 8th, not sure what's going on, my future. The 9th, they take my leg off. The 10th, I'm healthy.
Yeah, and also you've said, I've heard you say that what happened after the leg was cut off was almost a relief. It became almost like a relief because the pain disappeared.
Yeah, it was. I say this all the time. I've had many issues since June 9th, 99. Never one with my leg. I've never felt sorry for being a one-legged person. I've never felt sorry for being an amputee. It's brought me so many joys and so many incredible relationships. I've met some unbelievable disabled people in this country, athletes who are disabled. I've traveled the world since I lost my leg. For 39 years, I was able bodied. For the last 24, I've been disabled. And I think disability is a mindset. It's never weighed on my mental health being disabled. But I think it's something that can either bring you down or take you to a level that you can accomplish anything. And fortunately, I've done that. I've done some crazy things, accomplished some crazy feats in my 40s.
Well, listen, I'm going to borrow a phrase and not take credit for this. Ability over disability has been your mantra, and you've proven that that's the case. In fact, that's what your book is all about. Really, is it's about turning a disability into ability. So now you have this burden of this non-functioning leg that brought you pain, and now you're in a position now, maybe a little grateful about how things have turned out, relatively speaking. And now you decide you're a hockey player, and now you figure a way to enjoy the game of hockey in a way that you maybe didn't realize you could, right?
I had no clue. In September of '99, a few months after losing my leg, I went to one of the most incredible places, Variety Village. Anybody out there, if you got a chance to go to
Gotta
Variety
go.
Village and meet Archie Allison, one of the greatest human beings in the world, you will see a facility that will take ability through disability and take it to a thousand degrees. I met a young man, Shane Smith, incredible. He's actually playing wheelchair rugby right now for Canada. Triple amputee, 12 years old, tells me about sled hockey. And a week later, I find myself at Clatworthy Arena playing for the Markham Islanders. A guy on the Ottawa team and the national team sees me, tells me about the national team. And at 40 years old, I try out for and make Team Canada.
The Paralympic team, folks. This is this leads to uh, a lot of glory, buddy. A lot of glory that many of us would envy, many of us dream about. I mean, what's it like winning? I think you were in three Paralympics, right?
Yep.
And you
So
medaled in all three?
no, no, unfortunately. Salt Lake City in 2002, Torino in six, and ended my career in Vancouver in 2010. Gold medal. We shocked the world and lost in a heartbreaker in a shootout for the bronze in 2002. We're upset, one of the worst upsets in my career or Canadian history career in 2010 in Vancouver. I don't like to talk about that one, but it happened. But in 2006, we shocked the world. We beat the Norwegians 3-0. It was the first ever shutout in the history of Canadian hockey, gold medal shutout. Um, Very fortunate to have my mask in the Hall of Fame, to have many of my artifacts from that game in the Hall of Fame. Since then we've had two. Shannon Zabados for the women's team got a shutout in Vancouver and Sochi. Carey Price got a shutout in Sochi. But as far as it goes, the first ever was a one-legged guy from Thornhill who was told his whole life, Frank, he could never achieve greatness. Many people can do it, but only one first.
Absolutely. Congratulations on that. And we started this program on purpose. Your book is an important book. Never giving up. We talked about it at the beginning. We've talked a little bit, and of course, I'm with Paul Rosen, who wrote the book Never Give Up, along with Roger Lajoie, who, by the way, I was on the fan as a guest with him way back at the beginning, a long time ago. So I know Roger too. He may not remember me now. I'm just a little guy now, but him being the big guy, Ottawa Senators. Anyway, so I digress. So we talk about depression. We talk about how people who appear to have their life in total disarray, they people from the outside think of us, and I bring me into this because I don't want to talk like this just about you, where we feel almost, I don't want to say worthless, but less than we can be. But they don't realize with the successes that we have, and you got this guy talking on TV like he belongs here, like myself, and a lot of times people don't understand how depression is so devious, right? So again, let's continue with the success part. Here you are, you get to the Olympics, you win a gold medal, your mask is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. The Olympic experience, if you wouldn't mind, is there anything else that you'd like to add from the experience that you're proud of? I get the mask. You mentioned the most proud things that you probably are. What else were you proud of? The fact making the team, being there, representing Canada. What did that feel like?
Yeah, so making the team at 40 and competing in my first games in Salt Lake City at 42, when we thought the world was coming to an end. Remember,
Yep,
uh, in September, the Twin Towers went down. We weren't sure whether the games were even going to go on in February and March. President Bush had to decide that the games were going to go on. It's the safest place I've ever felt, Frank, in my entire life was in Salt Lake City. I felt we could do anything. We were so safe. And I've been to some scary places in the world. Walking through Salt Lake City felt great. Winning the gold in Torino, being there with my teammates, Jeff Snyder, our coach, who's the uncle of Dan Snyder, who died in the car accident with Dan Heatley. Some great family memories. I guess the ultimate would be Vancouver. As an athlete, you always want to compete in your own country. Now, we didn't have the success we wanted to end our careers, the guys that ended in Vancouver, but I'll never forget walking into BC Place, 100,000 people, opening ceremonies as an athlete with a disability. And for all your listeners, it's important that you say athlete with a disability, not disabled athlete. Huge difference. We're all athletes. We just happen to be disabled. Nobody has to tell us. I know. I look down. My leg is missing. Nobody has to tell me I'm disabled. But I'm an athlete who competed at the highest level for Canada. So when you walk in and you have the cheer that you would get, it's one of the most incredible feelings in the world. Now, I competed as an athlete in 3 games, and I've done it as a broadcaster in 2, Sochi and Korea. I'm getting ready to now broadcast my third games in Beijing for the CBC with Scott Russell, and I'm sure you know the name Scott Russell. He is
absolutely.
a god when it comes to amateur athletics. So as an athlete and then as a broadcaster, you just feel this sort of closeness with the games, and these games are incredible, Frank.
Absolutely, they are, and they're getting more and more respect. I would go as far as say that you know the human spirit, can overcome a lot. What we're talking about here is literally never give up your book. Is about overcoming things. We talked about ability against disability, right? Finding ability within disability, and never giving up, which is life's road challenges everybody. And to find the good things in life, when you look back at your ability to make the Olympics, and now you're broadcasting and watching athletes. I guess, is there any kind of vicarious experience in what you do? Is there some of that vicarious gratitude being there, watching these athletes and talking about these athletes and truly understanding what they're doing and what they're going through?
No doubt. From 2000 to now 22 years later in 2022, the athlete who's disabled, who's competing for Canada, or I'm biased, okay, so Canada, but the US, Russia, Sweden, Norway, doesn't matter.
So am I.
There you go. The level, I see the Canadian flag behind you. I'm proud
Got
of
that
that.
right, buddy.
But the level of athleticism from the women and the men is unbelievable. I don't know if half the guys I played with back then could make the team now. That's how good the athletes are on the Olympic and Paralympic level, especially on the Paralympic level. We are sending an incredible team to Beijing. The para ice hockey team, the wheelchair curling team, the Nordic skiing team, snowboarding now is in the Paralympics. Like, people get ready for some greatness. Now, there won't be people in the crowd, so it'll be a little different for the athlete, and that's going to be a little weird. But the March the 4th, I know February 4th, the Olympics are starting. March the 4th, the Paralympics are starting. Get behind your athletes and realize that, it might just be every 4 years that you see them, but they're working every single day, Frank.
Absolutely. The Paralympics aren't the afterthought. They're the cherry on top of the Olympics.
There you go.
It's the way I look at it anyway. Yeah, I know a lot about Variety Village. A lot of the seniors games I covered when I was with Rogers doing the play-by-play of that, and we do a lacrosse show here every week. And as you know, Birchmount Arena is right across the street. So,
Absolutely.
so, so
And
I know that.
you talk about lacrosse. Some of the best hockey players, Brendan Shanahan's, Joe Newendike's, some of the best hockey players have lacrosse in them. Great, great sport.
Absolutely. Love it to death. We do a show every week. I do it with Gary Grube. I'm very proud of the program that we do, and we've been doing it through you talk about the pandemic. And it's difficult. The pandemic, you mentioned it a little bit that the pandemic was an extra challenge for you. How did Paul Rosen and how do you negotiate this kind of time? Because they talk about the pandemic being something that has been dealing people depression more than normal because we can't get out, we can't do things. Has it been an extra challenge for you?
Absolutely, 100%. The unfortunately suicide rate amongst athletes, especially hockey players, is skyrocketing. Brady Leavold, who's a good buddy of mine and has a foundation called the Puck Support Foundation, the amount of suicide and addiction issues through the COVID-19 has just destroyed the hockey community, and it's been really tough. I'd say my partner and my partner's family have been a huge support because we live close to each other. But it was such a stretch where you couldn't even go to your family's house. So I went months without seeing my dad, who's 90 years old, because the fear of potentially giving him the disease. It's a tough time, and hopefully it's getting better. But man, it's anybody that's been struggling, my hat goes off to them because it's been really difficult.
Being a Jew and being in Europe, you found yourself very close to Auschwitz, Krakow,
Yep.
and you had an opportunity to visit that place, which for not just Jews, but everybody on this planet should be aware of what was going on there and must never forget about that. How did your unplanned visit there affect you?
It affected me to this day, and yesterday being Holocaust
Exactly.
Appreciation Day. Yeah, in 2000 and 19, 2000 and yeah, early 2019, I was in Ostrava calling the World Championships, and we had one day I called 20 games in 6 days. Frank, that was a
Superstar.
lot of hockey, a lot of
All on
hockey.
one leg.
Yes, all on one leg. Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry
Um,
about the joke.
that's okay. Hey, listen, I used to go to the IHOP restaurant all the time because I felt a kinship to the
There
pancakes.
we go.
But
Okay.
the producer Sasha Beck came up to me, and we had a day off the next day. He said, "Listen, he was German. I'm Jewish." He said, "Listen, I got a car. We're only 40 kilometers away from Krakow. Do you want to go see Auschwitz?" And I jumped on it. It was an experience that I will never ever forget as long as I live. Everything is kept exactly the same as it was from when the Holocaust happened. You walk into the front gates where the train went in when Spielberg did his movie. It I think every 100% every Jew has to walk the grounds of Auschwitz to understand what happened. But I think everybody, the hate in this world might go away, especially the people that say it never happened. That drives me crazy. Just walk the grounds and see how everything was back then, and see how hate took over this world. Man, it was an experience, Frank, that I'll never forget.
Well, I grew up in Toronto and I was born in the 50s and lived there through the 60s. And as an Italian in Toronto, I can tell you I can hold a lot of Jews' hands who were treated the same way as we were. Racism isn't just black and white. Hate isn't just black and white. It is black and white, but it isn't just black and white. And sometimes I think we forget how many of us should relate to discrimination and terrible acts. And the acts that took place in Krakow at Auschwitz um, are the kind of acts that we need to make sure that we remember because we have to remember how we get there so we never go back again. That's all I got to say on that. I don't mean to get political. So you had a chance to get in touch with your roots. I'm sure was your mother alive when you were there and came back?
No, she wasn't. She passed away in 2014. so she was not there when I went. It was
Did you
just
think of her? Did you think of her while you were there?
I did. I thought of my mother. I thought of my grandparents. My grandfather had a Jewish radio program for years. So yeah, I thought of a lot of people, and it was really only 3 years ago. It was April of 2019, the last time they had the World Championships that we could broadcast.
Yeah, and it's just getting in touch with who you are. When we talk about depression, all this stuff, never giving up and all that kind of stuff. What we're talking about is getting in touch with who you are, and talking about who you are. We've only got a few minutes left. So, how did you make all this great stuff in your life, the challenges that you've had in your life, the tragedy as a youth, and turn it into something that was motivational?
I think it's having strong people. As I was growing up, my dad, who's 90 years old now, still going strong. He taught me, the belief, even though I had many, many issues, he taught me that strength and perseverance can get through anything, that keep pushing forward no matter what happens. And, truck driver his whole life, worked hard. I had a brother and sister, and a brother who passed away when we were young, as a lot of people of our age did back in the 50s and 60s, when you didn't really know how to. My brother had spinal bifida back in 67 and passed away. But that type of perseverance, hardworking family, hardworking mother and father. Mother worked for like 35 years at the Bay. Um, just having that strong roots, and grandparents who, my grandmother's from Kiev. She died at 98 years old years ago, making a soup every day. That, Italian and Jew, very, very similar with the upbringing
No
of
kidding.
grandparents and great grandparents and family and support. That's critical to growing up, especially growing up with depression, is having that family background.
Yeah. So your motivation. How important do you think it is for people to find motivation? What's the benefit of finding motivation?
Motivation what keeps you going every day, Frank. With the depression and the different things that I've had with addiction, to being able to find something to live for, to find that motivation. Now, I have three grandchildren and two coming. By July, I'll have five grandchildren. That's one of the biggest motivators I have right now. Seeing my 11-year-old grandson and my 5-year-old grandson, think of me as this guy who overcame and achieved some incredible things, gives them the opportunity when they have trouble, that they can achieve anything. Having the opportunity to show the disabled community that no matter what happens to you, no matter what people look at you and say to you, that there are people out there that think you're incredible, that there's opportunities for anybody. 2022 is a year where being disabled is not a hindrance anymore. There's still problems. This world isn't perfect, but it's not 1920. There's so many things that you can do. You're disabled, you want to be a lawyer, be a lawyer. You want to be a doctor, be a doctor. You want to be a sanitation engineer, be that. Anything is possible. School is open to anybody. Education is open to anyone at any type of physical or mental challenge. It's the world is a lot better than it was years ago. We still got a long way to go, but it's better, Frank.
What matters, I think one of the biggest challenges, if you're an empathetic person, which I think I am, is that through challenges, call them disabilities or whatever, what's important, I think, and what we should do as a society and as people is look for the positives out of every experience. What you've shown us here today is that through a terrible experience, an enduring experience that lasted decades, you were able to find, we'll use the word now, motivation to do something. And that motivation was rewarded. I can't imagine how proud you must have been having won a gold medal at the Olympics, correct?
Yes.
And sitting in your sledge when the flag is being raised.
It's the greatest feeling in the world. You got the Canadian flag over your shoulder. When you're on the blue line, whether you're in a sled or standing up, whether you're a man or woman, or a sled hockey, para ice hockey player, to hear "Oh Canada," to look up and see the flag waving in the wind, to have that gold medal on your chest, it's a moment I'll ever, never, never, never forget it. As long as I live, the highs and lows, I'll go back to that moment. You know, Jeff Snyder, our coach, said when we got in the dressing room, boys, no matter what you do in your life, nobody can ever take away the fact that you are gold medal winners in the Olympic Games.
I think that's a beautiful a beautiful way to discuss what you've done and summing you up and ensuring that people understand, especially the people out there who feel a little bit down, who don't feel value, self value, who are suffering under the pressure of doubt and unfair self criticism. The other piece of advice before we go, which I'd like to share with people, one of the biggest challenges that I have, I don't know about you, is because you're prone to addiction or alcoholism, I'm prone to depression. Because of that, we have a fair sized target on us. And my advice to people out there, and I want you all to hear this very carefully, it makes us easy to be pushed into a terrible place. And if you feel someone is, let's just say, mistreating you, step away from them. And as you said at the beginning, Paul, a very important factor here is that if you're around people that don't make you comfortable, separate yourself from them and look for people who genuinely love you and care about you. We only got a couple of minutes. You shared that love with a 12-year-old, and we mean this in the good way. You met that young man who now you got to know when he was older. Speak for that moment, knowing who you are, who you've been, where you've been through, how important a moment like that where you could make a connection with a 12-year-old who was going through the same thing as you were.
It was critical. Shane Smith is an incredible young man. He's like a son to me. He's 33 years old now. He competes for the Canadian wheelchair rugby team. Travels all over the world. Competed in Japan for the 2020 games. And every day I talk to him, I learn something else. He's, you know, kid now who's at 33 has only really one limb. He's missing three. Had meningitis when he was 2 years old. He taught me a long time ago that your mindset, you know, you control everything by what's in your heart and what's in your head. He asked me once, he said, you still have your brain, you still have your heart. Disability is physically, somebody's looking at you and making a decision by the way you look. That is so unfair. Like your brain and your heart determine who you are.
And unfortunately, when you're in a place or able to not have faith in yourself, Paul, that's what makes you prone to spiraling. Like your bone shattering experience, you spiral into a way that no one should ever be pushed into. So, my advice to everyone out there, based on your experience, if you've heard from Paul Rosen today, this is one of the best programs I've had a chance to do to deal with personal challenges and the importance of basically surviving, which is basically all about your book, you know, which I think is very important. And of course, you wrote it with Roger Lajoie, Never Giving Up. And I thank you for never giving up. And I want to remind you, you don't have to either.
Absolutely. And if somebody wants the book, you can go through Friesen, you can go through Amazon, but you also can get it directly from me if you send me an email to Paul Rosen 577 at gmail.com. I will send you for $30 an autographed copy of the book, personalized, and we'll get it out to you. It's a real good read. Roger did a great job on it. And, you know, Frank, I really appreciate you having me on the show. A big fan. We haven't talked in a long time, but I remember those times, and I really respect you, buddy.
Oh, listen, I thank you for saying that. And I know you mean it. I know you're sincere. And I also know that we shared something today that we didn't until today. And that's the message, I guess, the final message I like to send out to you folks. When you look at somebody, don't assume that everything's fantastic and everything's well. Don't assume that you can't make somebody else's day better. Sometimes a simple smile will make it happen. Well, for Paul, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Frank.
My pleasure. For Paul Rosen, you've been watching Open Forum, Candid, Frank, and Live. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember, sorry, folks. Thanks for watching Candid, Frank, Live's Open Forum. Fridays at 4 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Open Forum, Candid, Frank, and Live, other news and entertainment sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next week. We'll see you then.